Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today you join me over in Showcast. As I spoke about on my previous video, I've called over to Graham's today and we've set up a tank and we're going to show you how pop-ups work in the water, how big your baits are going to be, and then we can talk about then variation your hook size to accommodate your pop-up. Show you how big pop-ups work, how different hook sizes work, the fine wire, the heavy gauge, and then we've got the tank behind you. Graham's just behind there now putting water in the tank, and then we get Graham on the camera and then I can talk you through how pop-ups work. And I've got all my pop-ups here and how they work in the water. Two bigs, how it makes it sink to the bottom, and as we spoke about, it kills using the pop-up. So what I'll do is now I'll bring the camera a bit closer. I'll show you how I got the pop-up set up on here and how fine wire to thick wire gauge hooks work differently with pop-ups. Then we'll get the bait on, we'll get them in the tank and we have a look how they all pop up in the water. Before I put the pop-ups in the tank, I just wanted to show you something, what we're going to show and test out here, which took it for a while. As you can see, that's just your normal 8mm. But what I've got there is a thick gauge hook. So that's what we're going to test first of all. I've got a thick gauge hook on there, exactly the same hook, but it's a fine wire hook. It's on exactly the same pop-up, and we're going to show you the difference there. I'm just going to bait those up with squid and we can put them into the tank and have a look. Because I brought some rigs over to Graham in a week and I was trying to explain how fine wire hooks work different from thick gauge hooks. And it is a massive difference because of weight difference, because you're going to try and just make your bait as light as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly bait up those two rigs with squid on them, get them into the tank, and we can have a look then how a fine wire hook compares to a heavy gauge hook. As you can see, I've put the two exactly identical size squid on the hooks. The hook the furthest away from us is the heavy gauge. The hook closest to us, as you can see, is the fine gauge, and the difference there, the fine gauge one is popped up lovely in the water, and then the heavy gauge hook, which is exactly the same size 4 hook, has sunk it. Pop-up's identical, and you can see then quite clearly the difference, and what a difference a fine gauge hook makes to the bait. What we're going to do is now I'll get them out of the water and I'll rebait them with a bit of ragworm, and I will have a look at the desired effect with those. Here now I've put half a ragworm on its own, and the angle that is popped up. This is with a fine gauge hook. As you can see, it is popping it up, but the ragworm is still a bit of an angle. What we're going to do is now, as I always say, don't put massive ragworm baits on. Because normally a lot of people would tip that off with squid, plus with the tide that would be laid in the bottom. So what I'll do is now I'll quickly show you the size of the ragworm you want to be using to pop up your baits. Yeah, as you can see now, I've stripped the worm down to match the pop-up, and as you can see it's popped up lovely in the water, so that's a desired effect. You can see there what an 8mm pop-up will do. It pops it up that much. Obviously you'll have a tide effect in it, but clearly what it's showing is with a bigger worm, it was just practically laying on the bottom, but as you can see that's popped up lovely. Keep it away from the crabs and obviously in the eyes of the bream and whatever you trying to catch mid-water. But you can see there how much I had to take off to allow that to pop up. What we'll do is now we'll go on to a slightly larger pop-up with a ragworm bait, and we can have a look at that then. Here I've got exactly the same size squid on, but what I've done is I've put a little bit bigger pop-up on, and as you can see that is popping it right up to the top of the surface. Same size squid, fine wire hook, and that is perfectly presented. The squid's not too big, the pop-up's doing its job, but you can see that is perfect, and that's how you want it presented. You're matching the squid to the size of the pop-up. Next now I'm going to put an even bigger pop-up and we can have a look how that works with a bit of squid, and then we'll put a bit of ragworm on a squid on. I've put a 12mm pop-up on now, and that is just completely sitting in the water film. It's even the pop in the bait practically horizontal, but that's stepping it up to 12mm. The only thing is you have an issue with the bigger pop-ups is in a strong tide flow that catches more of the tide and it will push it back down slightly to the bottom. That's why pop-ups are even better when you're fishing them when the tides slow down, so you get the desired effect. But as you can see quite clearly, a 12mm pop-up, a slice of thin cutlery squid has popped up lovely, practically horizontal in the water. What I've done here is now I've put a really big slither of squid on, and as you can see, the only thing that's happening here, the pop-up's keeping the front part of it up, but the sheer weight of the squid is sinking and roughly just off the bottom. But obviously if you trim that, well, like we just seen, it would float, but that is an oversized piece of squid, and the pop-up's doing its job. If the water was deeper, it would probably keep it even further up in here. But a 12mm one, which is surprising how big the bait is that it can keep up. So what we'll do is now we'll put a bit of ragworm on it now, and we'll see the desired effect with that. I put a whole ragworm on. The float is doing the desired effect, but the actual weight then is weighing down the hook and the line, because you've got more line now from the hook to the float, but it's popping it up well. I'm still in I think if the water was a little bit deeper, we could probably pop it up. But if you're fishing in shallow water, as you can see, the ragworm will actually be on the bottom. The issue I find with this, when it's presented like this, you can get a lot of missed bites where the fish are attacking the top of the worm, because the bottom of the worm is going to be obviously lower down and doesn't present the bait as I would like it. It's better when it's horizontal, but it is still providing the desired effect what we are looking for. Right, as you've seen, I tried to do my best, me and Graham did, with the tank. As you can see, you know, matching the size of your hook density, you know, fine gauge to a heavy gauge, the difference there, the different size in your bait. You know, if you are going to use a slightly bigger bait, just up your pop-up size. As you can see, the 12mm pop-up can actually pop up quite a considerable bait. And then, you know, the 8mm pop-up, that popped up a little bit, and then down to the 6mm, you know, where you've got to define your squid down. But I hope it helped. So when you are going out targeting fish using pop-ups, always try and make your bait to the size of the pop-up, because it is actually crucial. And we spoke about the big difference as well is with the tide. When you're fishing top pop-ups in tide and the tide is pushing through, obviously that will have an effect the way your pop-ups will sit in the water. You know, I like to fish it as the tide's slowing down, so you can take the full advantage out of your pop-ups. But that's me done now. I'm going to help Graham now, because he has got rigs and everything all over the floor. But yeah, but as normal, I hope that helps, and hope it, you know, enhances your fishing. But thank you very much as always, everyone, for watching. If I don't see you on the beach, I'll see you on the channel. Enjoy your fishing, everyone.